Hello, art parents! Okay, so here we are at the super crazy month, December. So what I'd like to have you do is just check in with your teacher right now, if possible. It'd be great if you just emailed them right now and said, hey, I've got a lesson for this month. What day is good for you? And then they can even say, like, how about the 18th before we go on vacation? We'll slip it in during that last week or whatever. Or they might say, you know what, it's just super crazy this month. And you just say, absolutely, let's just pass and not worry about it. I'll see you in January. Whatever works for them is fine. So we do have kind of a fun artist. We have Peter Paul Rubens, who was born just outside of Antwerp in 1577. And he was one of the Flemish masters, one of the masters of the Northern Renaissance. He kind of had a crazy childhood. His dad was a leader in the Protestant movement and also big at court. He was a financial advisor to, let's see, I want to say Anna of Saxony. Let me fact check myself really quick. But also her lover, or her mistress as a guy, whatever the male version of mistress is. So she was the wife of William of Orange. So kind of an interesting, you can imagine he was kind of a bigger character. He was persecuted. They moved around a lot as young kids. And then Rubens ended up with just his mother later, who was a very devout Catholic. So he kind of went from this like feverish Protestantism to feverish Catholicism, and that created a very strong religious hold on him for the rest of his life. A lot of his work is done to illustrate lives of the saints or different stories from the Bible, and he did end up becoming a Catholic himself, in case that's interesting. So Rubens, he's a great illustrator of the time, and just kind of the ideals and the movements, especially if the Northern Renaissance is just slightly different from the Southern Renaissance, and both are incredibly beautiful. It's a great time to study art. But you can see in his work there's a lot of action, which I love, a whole lot of like dramatic feel, and we see that like we don't have the stiff, formal forms of like the early Christian art. We're moving into that more humanistic view that was taken during the Renaissance. But then also he is just, really action-packed. And the kind of fun thing about that is that Rubens really illustrated his beliefs on people in his art. So he shows his males are big guys. They're all big guys, really muscular. They're usually in very dramatic, high action poses. And the females are all very soft and supple and sensuous and big. And they're shown in more like contemplating aspects, or, subservient to the male, which is, this is a highly patriarchal society. But he loved kind of more rotund people, and actually it became an adjective to say someone is Rubenesque, which means they're pleasantly plump. And I always think it's interesting just to point out to the kids that that is because it was a sign of wealth. If you were chubby, it's because you had enough to eat. And that's a good thing, right? Back then, it wasn't like now where we have grocery stores around the corner or fast food restaurants, all over the place that we can stop into. You had to grow or raise or hunt for your food. And if you were a peasant, you were working really hard for that. And if you were a noble person, you weren't working as hard, which meant you could get chubby. You didn't have to work as hard, and food was more plentiful, so you were going to be a little bit bigger, and that was a good thing. That was considered beautiful in the time. So along with his work illustrating religious stories, Rubens also did a lot of portraiture. And I think it's also interesting to point out to the kids that portraiture was the bread and butter of artists back at this time, and any time really before the camera, because again, if you were wealthy and kind of important, you wanted a picture of yourself, but there wasn't a camera, so what did you do? You hired an artist to paint a portrait of you. And then the final thing that I think is really fun to point out is just he does such a nice job with highlighting and shading, and you really get a feel for like this, this glow from his subjects' faces. And that is because he wanted to show the spiritual aspect in his paintings. So he did that by, by using these highlights to create a glow. And one thing that was kind of fun, in our library we had some sketches. So you can kind of see his sketch work, which really illustrates that well. See how he's got all the pencil work in, and then he went back in with chalk and put in the highlights. It's fun to see. And tell them that is essentially what we're going to be doing today. Maybe a little bit more highlighting if they want to. I've got colored chalk available, so they can really go to town on the chalk if they want to. But we're going to draw a portrait of a friend in the reubens style, or just a portrait of a classmate if that seems tricky. So go ahead and let them pick a partner and move once you send them off to get started. Once you've talked, you send them off to get started. And then just say, we're going to be drawing each other. And because of that, they don't have time to sit there and let you draw them straight on, which honestly isn't a super interesting way to have a portrait anyway. Just, straight head on, straight lines down the middle. It's more interesting to have kind of a curve in the neck, or looking down, or looking up, whatever they can make work with also letting the other person draw at the same time. So I think we're going to have a lot of people with drawings, of someone in like a 3/4 profile, looking down. And look, isn't that beautiful? I mean, that's like the classic Da Vinci pose right there. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to experiment. You're going to want to have them work with pencil to start out and to get in their framework. But I'm going to go ahead and do it in chalk just so that you can see more easily what I'm doing. So say, take a look at what they're doing. How much of the face are you seeing? Is it, is it almost a profile? Is it almost head on, but just a little bit to the side? Take a minute and observe, because that observation is what really makes good art, interesting art. So I'm going to do a person kind of head down, and I'm just going to make kind of a squinchy oval to start out with. So you can see, and see how I'm just drawing really lightly, and I'm not trying to do like one big line. I'm just using, I call these tickle marks with my younger students, tickle lines. I'm just going back and forth and kind of sketching in. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a cross to divide the face into halves. And so we're not going to do it like straight down across like that, because that's not going to get your face in half. This face is turned a little bit off to the right, so we're going to move that line. It will be where the nose and mouth are, just right down the middle, but we're going to move that to the side a little. And we're also going to make it rounded just a little bit, because your head is a sphere, not a perfect sphere, but it's a sphere. So you want to show that roundedness. And then I'm going to do the same thing across the middle of the face to show that midline, and I'm going to round it up again. And the highest point of our arc will intersect with our line going down. So here's our face. It looks kind of funny right now, right? But this will help the kids to put everything in the right place. And now we're going to put our eyes so that our eyes are just along the bottom here. And, tell them, just take a minute and see, does it kind of slant up a little bit more right here and then go down? Is it a little bit more slanty at the end? Try and make that eye look like their eye. Same thing with the nose is going to curve out from right here where we've got the eyebrow and that brow bone. And go out, and a 3/4 nose is a lot easier to do because you can just make this curved line, and then you can make that little bridge part coming down. So we've got a little, don't make it go in too far, the little peak of the nose, or maybe if they have a more rounded nose, just take a minute to see. And then we're going to put just a little nostril here. Ooh, that's kind of an ugly one. That's okay. You get the idea. To show that other part of the nose, to show your nostril. You don't need to worry about the other side because it's kind of hidden, right? And then same thing, your eye is going to be, the very corner is going to be hidden. It's not going to start over here and go up over. It's going to, you're going to get kind of, started in the middle there. Oops, this eye got away from me just a little. It's kind of hard to draw from this angle. And then, oh, I forgot to have you make 3. If you just divide this into thirds, that makes it kind of easy to know where to end your nose and where to make the midpoint of your mouth. So if they're just sitting with a relaxed, closed mouth, it's gonna, you're right there. So they can kind of make the upper lip, however it, again, just say, look and see what it looks like, and then however you want to go down from there. And keep in mind, remember, everything on this side is going to be a little shorter than on this side because we're seeing more of this side. And then they can start adding in the details and the hair can fall, down around the face. And again, you want to just, you don't want to know like lines, hard lines. We just want to use those sketching strokes. And you want to remind them that here you've got a forehead because we used that crosshatch to show where the face was. But you also want to give room for a brain. That's the thing that a lot of times students forget. You got to have a brain in that head. So make the hair coming back. And on the other side, and see how, oh good, they have room for their brain now. There's a brain back in there. You got the hair starting in. And then they can go from there. And the kind of fun thing is, you'll want to keep in mind, you're going to erase these crosshatches, which are in pencil, and they're pretty light. And then you're just going to start kind of shading in. But it's going to be the opposite from what's normal because you're using the white. So your white highlight around the nose is going to be a little bit more. And then you can use some of the other colors, like if you want to give some, maybe my person has startlingly blue eyes. And look how I'm I'm doing it around, I'm making my round pupil, and I'm kind of using that, the chalk to not fill in all the way, and then I can just use my finger and kind of push that around, and it gives it a natural shaded effect. So just let them kind of experiment, just say, have fun, be loose with it, be like Reuben. It's not anything to stress out about. It's kind of a wonky nose and mouth, but it works. If you have any questions, of course, let me know. And like I say, just don't stress if it doesn't happen this month, or if your teacher says it's just not good. But, if we can, we want it to happen for them, so don't forget to email them right now. Thanks so much, parents.